Hi, my name is Alan Coley with the ASMP Pittsburgh chapter. I'd like to welcome you to our Thursday Zoom In on Your Work session. Tonight we have a special guest presenter, Christina Peters. She runs a food photography club, Christina Peters Photography, food photography blog. I met Christina a couple of years ago when I joined Food Photography Club while I was exploring food photography as a new niche, new thing to put into my portfolio. So with that, let me turn it over to Christina Peters for our presentation tonight. Take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. I'm going to share my keynote there. And then just y'all can see that okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, great. So tonight's talk is something that's near and dear to my heart because, you know, I have a couple of photography degrees and no one told me this in school. And I kind of learned this the hard way, like school of hard knocks. So I've always been on a mission to help other artists answer sort of questions on how to even start a photography business, a creative business, and sort of navigate all these options that we have. So a little background about me, as Alan had mentioned, I've been a commercial photographer for almost 30 years. The last 15 years, I have specialized in food photography, and I've photographed for a lot of brands over the years, big and small, lots of small brands too, but these are some of the ones you might have heard of. I typically work with many different types of businesses. So I work with ad agencies, design firms, magazines, book publishers, restaurants, food brands, food companies, you name it. If they have a big enough budget, like a 4-figure day rate, then I'll work with them. But like I was saying before, the first 10 years, I really was a Jackie of all trades. I shot everything. So I really do have a sort of an understanding of many different disciplines in photography. So I did portraiture, I did corporate, I photographed animals. I did like a whole thing with animal portraiture commercially and also with civilians, you know. I did a lot of product photography. I shot cars, location, all kinds of stuff. So that was the first 10 years. And then I really just homed in on food photography after that, which really, as a result of that, really launched my career. So I have been teaching for many years, and I've had a blog called Food Photography Blog for the last 10 years or so. And then I also have a membership site called the Food Photography Club, where I teach the business of food photography and also, you know, just teaching people how to create a really great food portfolio as well. So today's talk is all about opening your photography business. And so I'm going to be generalizing this. It's not just about food at all. So I'll be talking about sort of everything anyone needs to go through when they're actually opening a photography business or sort of realigning their photography business. So this is my big fat disclaimer. I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA, and I do not play one. I'm just simply sharing with you guys what I have learned over the years. So with a lot of the students that I coach and the photographers that I work with, I just tell you guys how I run things, how I've learned things, and then you can pick and choose what might work for you. And hopefully with today's conversation, I can let you know things to ask your CPA, you know, a small business attorney and things like that. So if you're considering opening a business or bringing in a different discipline, I can give you some suggestions on things to ask your business team. So, and another disclaimer, I'm going to mention some websites and some companies here, and I'm not associated with them. I'm not affiliated with them. They're not paying me to talk about them. These are just things that I find very helpful. So we're going to be talking about several different topics about opening a business. And this is going to be like a top level conversation. So seriously, each one of these topics could be its own webinar. But it's important to talk about it and acknowledge it, just sort of put it there, because I might mention something you might not have thought of if you're just starting out or sort of realigning your business and shifting things. So, this is something that I never used to do when I was starting businesses and things like that, because I have several different, business properties that I do. Creating a business plan. And, it's one of those things where people are just like, oh God, like really the business plan. But I look at the business plan from more of a creative standpoint, where you're planning and envisioning how you want your business to be. And it doesn't have to be 900 pages. It's not like you're trying to get funding, $5 million funding, right? This is really for yourself to start and really assess where your business is. And if you've never done one before, it's a fun process. I enjoy doing them. And they say you should sort of update your business plan every few years, or when you feel you're going to shift your business. It's just planning your business. So there's a great website called bplans.com, and they have a bunch of sample business plans that are free. And they have some photography business plans in there too. They have over 150 different business plans in there. So you can look through them, and they kind of give you ideas of things that you need to consider and to sort of look at, to when you're starting a business, you need to look at your competition. Who are they? How do they specialize in the area you're going in? Maybe find rates for people in your area and things like that. So it's just a good thing to generally start with. Another thing that some people actually struggle with is just naming the business. And so I just say, keep it simple at first. If you're just starting out, you can absolutely use your name plus photography. That's what I did. I had it that way for many years. And, if you have a very common name, you might not be able to find some social media channels available with that name. So there's a handy little website called noam.com. And this website will enable you to check a business name or a URL in all of the channels that we have for social media. And, if it's a .com, .net, or whatever, it really saves time. So you don't have to just go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on GoDaddy, who has this URL, see if it's available, that kind of a thing. So this website can save some time if you are naming a business or changing the name of your business as well. We have to get pretty creative these days. So finding a Facebook page that's available, finding an Instagram handle that's available, and a website name that all is sort of cohesive and consistent you can spend some time on this. So that's where this website, Noam, and there's several websites too that check sort of all the social media channels, and it's instant and they're free, by the way. The other thing you need to do is to check your local city, your county, and the state that you're in. So obviously y'all are in PA, right? So depending on the city, I forget, does PA use townships instead of counties? I forget. But every sort of branch of government there in the state, they're going to have their different ways of doing things. And so you can find out if your name already exists as another business, if it's not going to be your name plus photography, right? So if you're completely creating a name that you're just making up that no one's ever used before, this is where you need to check and see if somebody else has that name. It happens all the time, right? You come up with this brilliant name, you think it's amazing, and of course somebody else already has it. It's very frustrating. So, and trademarks. This is something that's really important. I have business coaches too, and a few of them, they're pretty big players in the game, and they didn't check trademarks when they came up with their business name, and they had to completely reorganize their business, change their business name, because someone came after them because they had a trademark on that business name for years before they did. And they didn't even think to look there. So you can simply Google trademark search for the United States, and you'll get the website. When you get there, it kind of looks like it was built in, 1993. It probably was built then and it hasn't changed since. You're just going to see a bunch of text and stuff. It's a typical government website, super easy to use. So that's a great way to check for trademarks and stuff like that. So another thing to consider when naming, if you are going to use a business name that's not your name and photography, and you're coming up with a creative name, so that's going to be called, depending on your area, doing business as, that's a DBA, or a fictitious business name. So no, that's a type. It's not FNB, it's FBN, fictitious business name. So, so that will be a search you have to do on the local level. So your city and your county, that kind of a thing. So, and there's different costs associated with that, depending on the city and the town. With some towns, coming up with a DBA could take you just an hour. That's it. You just have to register it. They want a fee, of course. But in other towns, like in Los Angeles, it takes over 4 weeks. This name has to be printed in a newspaper. They have to, it's called publishing, and it's a whole thing, and it's very expensive, and it takes forever. And sometimes the local publisher will make a typo in your publication, and you have to redo the whole thing. That's happened to me twice. So it can just take time. So I'm just warning you, if you have an event coming up, you're trying to use that business name and have people pay you in that name, you might not legally be able to do that if you're dealing with a city that or a county that says you have to publish that name. So that can take some time. So just be aware of that. It took me 6 months to get my mess fixed because the publisher made a typo on my name. Okay. And then of course, Pennsylvania has sales tax, right? So you're going to have to determine what the governing entity is that handles sales tax in your area. So and these things are changing rapidly right now. So please check with your CPA and your business attorney about that. So, so let's now talk about something called tax status. This is how you are taxed by the government. And so as photographers, we pretty much have 3 very common options. The quickest and easiest way to start a business, you could start one tonight as a sole proprietor, right? And so that is where you yourself are, you are the thing that's in business. It's you as a person. And so it's very easy to set up. You don't need a lot of paperwork, but you are going to pay more tax on this. You're going to pay what's called self-employment tax. And so that's the only drag with being a sole prop. It will cost you more money at the end of the year with taxes. There's another type of entity structure called an LLC. That's very common with a lot of photographers do that. This can help you protect assets. So if you own a house, if you're married, if you have property, any type of property, you need to start looking at asset protection. As a sole proprietor, you don't have asset protection. So if someone comes after the business as a sole proprietor, they're coming after you. So that means anything you own could be sort of brought up to, question whether, if you're found at fault at something, that could leave a liability there. So with other entities, it separates you from the business, and your business is looked at a separate thing, a separate entity. So that's what an LLC and corporations are. So if you just have a straight up LLC, you're going to be paying more tax as well. You're going to be paying some self-employment tax if you are a single owner. Now, within the last 10 or 12 years or so, LLCs can actually be taxed as an S Corp. This is very complicated. Again, I'm just going to do top level stuff, but I'm just letting you know you can have an LLC and avoid this double taxation thing with the 15% tax and income tax. So as an S Corp, you can save money on that. So the LLC could ask to be taxed as if it's an S Corp. So that's one way to handle it. Again, talk to your tax people about this stuff. I am personally an S Corp, my business. And so with an S Corp, you do have, of course, asset protection. My business name is called Merseyside Productions. It's one of those things where the year I started making a lot more money with my photography is when I was talking to my CPA and my small business attorney about, is this the right year to maybe turn corporate? And so the year I S-corped, I saved $8,000 on my taxes that year. So that has completely paid for itself. So when you start making more money as a shooter, then that's when you need to start talking to your people. I regularly talk to my tax people and my business attorney a couple times a year. So I just sort of let them know what's going on financially, if we need to make any adjustments and things like that. So they're part of your business team. And so as soon as you start having some money coming in, then that's when you really could have this conversation and potentially save a lot of money in taxes. So you can easily start as a sole proprietor. Just keep this conversation in the back of your mind. When you start making some decent money as a shooter, then that's when you need to talk to your people to really figure out, hey, maybe there's some next steps I need to do. Or if you just bought a house, now you have an asset, we need to protect that asset and remove yourself from the business through paperwork, right? Now, we have a really good tool in the US here called the Small Business Administration. They're a great resource for people starting out. They're very supportive. And you also have the ASMP here, right? So I'm going to talk and share some information about that later. For those of you that are in the ASMP, of course, you have a lot of resources here. So I'm going to sort of show you some screenshots of where you can find some things. Another thing that a lot of shooters like to ignore or just tend to ignore is the fact of do they need a business license or not? So this does come down to your city and your county. If the type of photography that you do requires a business license. And so when, the bulk of my business has been in the state of California, but I moved around in a lot of different cities in the state of California. Every city was very different. It was all within one county though. But some cities, they charged an awful lot for a business license. They charged a percentage of my gross sales. So that business license every year was thousands of dollars. And then when I just moved about 8 miles away into another town, my business license went down to a standard flat $100 a year. So it really, every city is completely different. You can't predict this stuff. And so the other thing to consider is, as photographers, if you don't have a studio, you have a home business now. So some cities don't allow that, like straight up. You can't even have a business out of your home. Some cities will allow you to have a business out of your home, but you are not allowed to have customers come to the business. Others are totally fine with it. They don't care. They just want a fee for it. So there's all these different ways that cities handle small businesses like ours. It's really important to do that research. I didn't even know about, a home business permit until I moved to this other city and I started doing my research. And so they were like, oh, well, you have a home business, you have to deal with this whole other department. And it was two completely different licenses. I had a city license and I had a home business license. So, it's just more money, right? Soon as you are making a few dollars, that's the definition of you're in business. So a lot of photographers that I work with, they've been shooting for a few years, but their excuse why they haven't set anything up is because, well, I'm not really doing it full time. the governing entities don't care. They don't care how long you've been doing it or how much money you're really making. They need to know about it because they want a percentage of that. That's all it comes down to. A lot of our cities make a bulk of their money from the businesses that are in it. So that's why they really want to know. And in again, my experience has been California. What a lot of photographers were doing was we have sales tax in California too. And they were registered with the sales tax board, but they didn't have a business license. Well, so guess what? The sales tax board talks to the cities and the counties. So photographers are getting busted operating without a business license because they share that information. And, those two entities share that information. So, the state of California is telling the city of Los Angeles, hey, this broad over here, she's had a resale certificate with us for 10 years. So then the city's like, nice, where's your license? Great. We're going to fine you. We're going to penalize you. And we're going to charge you an awful lot of interest because you haven't paid us taxes in 10 years. So they can go back and audit you. Again, every city is different. And, don't want to put the, fear of God in you about it, but kind of do a little bit. Do your research. If you've been shooting and operating without a license and without being registered with these governing entities, just get your stuff straight because they'll find you eventually. They need money right now. That's the thing. So as soon as we go through something like a pandemic, these cities get hit hard. They need cash. So where are they going to go looking for that cash? They're going to try and find businesses that aren't operating legally, and they're going to try and nail them with permits and things like that. So that's kind of how that little cycle works. So in PA, you can go to revenue.pa.gov to learn more about sales tax in your area. And so I just did a little research on this, but apparently photographers do have to charge sales tax in PA. But again, I didn't do an extensive amount of research on this. Each state is sort of getting hip to the idea that we are creating digital content. Some states, you don't have to charge sales tax for digital content, and they define what that is. Every state's different. Like California, still shocking to me that they aren't charging photographers sales tax if we transfer our files digitally. I mean, it's like a huge amount of money. Back in days of film, we had to charge sales tax on all that stuff. Sure, through some ad agencies, we could do resale, but as soon as someone's using that image, that's an end use, we had to charge everybody sales tax. So all of a sudden with digital files coming through, it just radically, they got a lot less money. So do your research on that. But so this is the website there, revenue.pa.gov. That's the website for you guys to sort of do your research about that. Okay, so business insurance. It's shocking how many shooters are running around without insurance. So it's not if you need business insurance, it is when you need insurance. Stuff happens. So there's different types of insurance that is available. In my experience, there are very few companies that specialize in insurance for us photographers. We need a lot of different things that are not common for a regular business, like a brick and mortar retail store. We have different needs than they do. And so Tom C. Pickard is a small company. They're based in California, but they underwrite all over this country. And they've been around for decades, and they fully understand photography and videography. And I've been with them for 25 years. I was with a small little company before I moved over to them. And it was one of the first things I did when I got legit was get my business insurance. And so there's many different types of endorsements that they have, so they can really customize a policy for you. There's a whole bunch of insurance companies running around saying they have a photographer's policy, and it's not true. It's just a regular business policy that's missing half the endorsements that we would like as photographers, but they're just trying to, make a buck. And so they're like, oh, we have a photography policy. Things like like your portfolio. Did you know you can have an endorsement to have that insured? I ship my portfolio all over the country via FedEx. I've had ad agencies lose my portfolio. I print that myself. That's like a week's worth of printing. I value that book at $2,500. Should be more, but that's the endorsement. So if that gets lost, you can use that. There's a lot of different things. Like, for instance, if you hire a photo assistant and they get in a car accident, you are going to be held responsible for that. So there's an endorsement for, assistance when they're driving on your watch and they get an accident. You can help them and be covered and make sure that they're okay. Things like that. There's a lot more to this. This could be a whole webinar of the business insurance stuff, but it's not sexy, but it's important for us to have. Okay, so now that we've talked sort of about some basic business stuff, let's talk about some setup costs. We're in a very expensive profession. And so there's a lot of photographers who want to be a photographer. And then they email me saying, what's cheapest camera I can get? I don't want to use a tripod and I'm not going to use strobes. I'm like, all right, good on you. Good luck with that. Okay. They're not being realistic about what they need to really produce jobs properly for what we do here. So really think about this and assess what you currently have. Take an inventory of all of your equipment, make a spreadsheet of it. Seriously, all the way down to the serial numbers. You need that for any business insurance anyway, for the equipment. You have to know what you have and figure out the replacement value of that. And then you have to figure out what's equipment that you're going to need. Now, that's one of those things where there's cameras I think I need, but I honestly don't need them, but I want them. So you can come up with what you need list, and then you can come up with what you would like to have down the road. That's for planning. So what you really need right now might be just a few basic lenses, a couple of camera bodies, maybe some lighting. That could be bare bones. What you want down the road, do you want to get a really beautiful medium format system down the road? Something like that. So it depends on the type of work that you do. Of course, if you're shooting with ad agencies, they really want big fat files for a lot of their work because they're going to be cropping in really quite a bit and then blowing it up really huge. So they're used to getting big fat files. So that might be a digital back. Those are very expensive. So really assess your setup costs and be realistic about where is that money going to come from and how are you going to pay for that and get that done. So maybe you need to take out a small business loan. The SBA has really great rates on small business loans. There's tons of different loans that the SBA offers for businesses. So maybe that's an option. If you have good credit, you could look at your local bank, your local credit union for a small business loan as well. If you have good credit, they can give you a good interest rate. Interest rates are crazy cheap right now. Really, right now is a good time to buy money. But anyway, so if you really don't know what you need to start setting yourself up professionally as a photographer, and this whole conversation is like you're freaking you out, I suggest start assisting other photographers in your area. So here with the ASMP, you've got a built-in network of good people here, and you can find people who are local to you and assist them and work with them. And, I learned so much from assisting. So my deal was I went to a couple of schools and got a couple of degrees in photography. And then I felt like technically I knew my stuff, but I wasn't taught anything about the business of photography at all. Nothing like what we're talking about at all. They talked about accounting a little bit, but that was it. They didn't say anything about how to get clients. How do you even recognize clients to go after? Who are the right kind of clients? They didn't talk about any of this stuff. If you assist someone, you're going to experience their world, and every photographer is different. It's super fun. I really enjoyed assisting. So after I graduated from Art Center. After that, I assisted as many photographers as I could for 2 years. I gave myself 2 years and I worked full-time as a photo assistant. I fully set myself up as a professional photo assistant. This is back in the 90s. It was before we had websites. We just barely had email, So I made a promo and I sent it out to the photographers whose work I really admired and technically respected. And I worked with a whole bunch of different photographers, all different disciplines. You name it, I was an assistant and ended up, second shooting with them and stuff like that. So I got a ton of experience doing that. And so I learned that a lot of photographers don't know how to run a business. They aren't organized. So I ended up helping a lot of these photographers sort of organize their books and things like that. So that's kind of like, I learned what not to do through these people that I was assisting. Seriously, like, the joke of men in black suits with the sunglasses and, Ray-Bans knocking on your door, like the black suit, white shirt, black, they totally look like that. Like when the IRS comes knocking on your door, they actually really do look like that. So I had a photographer, I go in to help him like strike a set one day. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go over to so-and-so studio over there. If someone comes knocking, looking for me, just tell them you don't know where I am. It's like, okay, what the hell's going on? And he's like, well, I owe a little money to the IRS. No big thing. So they were knocking on his door and they were asking me if I knew about a yellow sports car he just purchased. So I was like, I don't know anything. I'm just an assistant. I'm literally logging film. That's all I can tell you. So I learned a lot about what not to do. And then from a couple of photographers who really had their act together, it was just night and day. They were organized with their photo shoots. The clients really enjoyed the experience. The production was so smooth. So I learned a lot of my production experience there, assisting other photographers. And I think because I was always assisting all kinds of different disciplines, I could pick and choose, oh, this photographer, I really liked how they did this in their business with this particular client. That would work really well with this type of a client too. So I got to sort of pull together my production skills from these 35 different people and producers that they worked with too. So it's just a really great way to learn our field, because every shooter has a different way of doing things. So now you guys belong to this awesome organization, right? So you really need to take advantage of what's here for you. So you have member resources. They have, along with all the things that I'm talking about, we're just scraping the surface, right? So you need to have estimate forms, invoice forms, terms and conditions, things like that. I have delivery form, like image delivery memos and things like that. So the ASMP has resources for you here so that they can help you with this stuff. So just inside their forms and tutorials, you have a whole section on contracts, business forms, copyright information. Seriously, I mean, I don't even know. I've had thousands of images stolen, with the web and all that stuff. I had a website since 1997. So I've got images all over the world that have gotten stolen. So, and I've gone after many, many, many companies, and I've made thousands of dollars suing them for stealing my stuff. So copyright advocacy is a whole thing of mine. And so, with an organization like the ASMP being behind you, they can help you figure out if your stuff gets stolen, what your options are and things like that. Licensing, that's a huge thing. That really confuses a lot of photographers, not just ones starting out, but we have our image fee for shooting it, which is our time. And then we have the licensing of the image. That's how the image will be used. Those have two different costs. And how do you calculate that? It can get really complicated, right? So you guys have pricing guides available to you. And I just wanted to show you where they are on your website here so you can find them. There's a bunch of stuff in here for you. So if you haven't dug around in here, there's like, little treasure chest in here for you guys. So they also work with a company called Photo Quote. Super nice group of people. They're a smaller company. They've been around a long time, and you get a smoking discount with them too. So that's a good. And in their software, they do have some pricing structures and things set up for you to help you as well. So and there's all those webinars that you guys are doing, just like this one. So I just sort of wanted to remind you of that. Okay, so now let's talk about some more fun stuff. Okay, so we're gonna really, branding is something that you hear all the time. Oh, you have to have a brand, you have to have all that stuff. Just be realistic about this. Getting a full-blown branding system is over $5,000 when you go with a branding company and all of that. You don't have to do that starting out. A graphic designer might tell you you have to. No, it's not going to affect you as a photographer, right? There's a really, really simple, easy way to start with your business. And it's super simple. Just start with a logo. It's called photologo.co, C-O. That's not a typo there. It's not com. It's $40. And you can get a custom made photo logo, which is just your signature. Just start with that. I have coached so many photographers who their website's done, their portfolio's awesome, they're ready to go. They made postcards and they're not launching anything because they're stuck on a logo. Like, I hired this designer. I'm still waiting on the logo. And it was like months ago. Don't ever let a logo or branding stop you from moving forward with your business, right? So I just want to really, I'm not kidding. So many, half the photographers I work with, something's holding them up with the branding, with the logo. Don't even let that be a consideration to stop you from your business. So photo logo, that's it, $40 just for now. You can always change it later. And then when you do, it's an excuse to do a little launch about it. Hey, we've got a new logo or a new website or whatever. It's a great reason to reach out to your customers and prospects and things like that, just to introduce yourself, right? So I just want to really, I always surprise me. And then after all these years with coaching photographers, it's like, okay, this is a theme. This is very common. I launched with a logo that I had a student make for me, and I used it for several years, and it was fine. And then I probably had like 4 or 5 logos over the 30 years that I've been doing this, so I'm not changing it every 5 minutes. But I just sort of, change it, get it a little more modern, that type of thing. I only did the $5,000 branding thing one time, and honestly was kind of disappointed in the results, going to be honest. So yeah, you don't even have to spend $5,000 if you don't want to. Okay. So I want to talk briefly about something I call the tag system. And so the way I go about getting clients is a little different from what even like the photographers that I was assisting way back and the instructors I had at school. I do something completely the opposite of what we're taught. We're taught, make a portfolio, now go get clients, right? So take all these pictures, do what you love, make a portfolio, now go get clients. I never understood that. And I did that, but my portfolio really was more fine art. It wasn't commercial. I wanted to do commercial, but I wasn't guided on how to determine what images I need to do to make money at this. What type of portfolio do I need to have? So the way I've learned over the years that really has worked well for me, before you even dive deep with obsessing about making your portfolio, the question I have for you is, who are your clients? Who do you want to shoot for? It'll really help narrow down your options of what the portfolio is going to be. So tag simply is target your clients. Who are they? And then The A stands for attract. You got to build a portfolio that's going to attract those people. And then the G is just now that you know who you're going after and you know what they like because you've studied them, you have followed them on social media, you've signed up for their emails, you know what type of photography that they're using already, you know that they might be like, symbiotic with your type of work, right? Now you go get them. You set up a marketing plan. You have to schedule out that marketing plan. You've got to be consistent. One email does not a marketing plan make. So if you send an email and you don't hear back from someone, doesn't mean anything. It could mean they never got it. They were too busy. They didn't open it. You didn't do it properly. So it got into their spam folder. So that doesn't mean anything. You try again and again and again and again. It's a year-long process, marketing, so that people get used to your name, get used to seeing you and things like that. So I call it tag. So target, attract, and get your clients. So the goal here is to find clients that are willing to pay you a 4-figure day rate. Let's be honest, 4-figure day rate. If you're shooting jobs for $200, $300, you're not going to, you can't sustain that. You're not going to be able to make a living at this, and you're going to burn out because the amount of jobs you're going to have to do just to meet your overhead every month, if they're only $200 or $250, the amount of jobs that you have, it's just going to burn you out, and you're not going to be left with much at the end of it. So I'm all about, targeting the clients that I know I can tell they're hiring professional photographers. Just because they have really great photography on their website doesn't mean they're not going to hire you. It's the opposite. That's awesome. If they have good photography on their website, they hire professional photographers. That's a good thing. I've had so many people tell me like, oh, well, they already have really nice photography. I'm not going to reach out to them. No, that's exactly who you should reach out to, because you don't have to convince this client that they need to hire a professional photographer. They're already doing that. And those people who have crappy cell phone shots on their website, we all know who those are. They don't see the difference with professional photography yet. They haven't learned or experienced an item selling out because they updated the photography and the image of it was so great. People bought it. I mean, that's literally what happens with my clients. We take an awesome image of their product, their food, or whatever it is, and they sell out because the image was so good, So they have an experience. And as soon as they experience that, then that's when they get hooked and they shoot everything. They want it more. They're like, oh my God, that works so well. We got to do it again, right? Those are the type of clients that we want. We don't want to convince the ones that haven't seen the experiences yet. It's a waste of your time because they only want to pay $20 for 900 images. Oh, and they want you to do it in 2 hours. And can you do it yesterday? Yeah. We don't want those. Right? All right. So you got to have a website. And seriously, people tell me they just have Instagram. That's it. That's not enough. That's not a marketing plan. We need tools. Instagram's an awesome tool for marketing. Facebook's a great tool for marketing. We want to get them onto our website because that's where we control that dialogue. So when they're on our website, they're looking at our stuff only. I don't want them looking around on Instagram and Facebook. Sure, if they find me there first, I'm just going to be sending them right back to my website. That's the goal there. Get them off social media and get them onto my website so that I can then show them all of my stuff and that it's perfect for them. And then we can have that conversation. So an Instagram account is not a portfolio. It's not enough for a portfolio. And you can't control that platform. That's the other thing. You need to have a website so that you can control that platform. It's your website. So Instagram and Facebook, they change stuff all the time, daily, sometimes multiple times in a day. And you have no control of that. So we need an entity that you can control that has your portfolio on it visually, right? So of course we do use social media, but again, as a marketing tool to drive traffic to our website. That's the goal with that. All right. So we covered a whole bunch of stuff here, but I just wanted to offer you guys a free little PDF if you would like it. this is where I talk about my 4-figure day rate plan. And you can go to foodphotographyclub.com/4. And it's totally free. It's a 10-page PDF you can download. And I talk about this a little more in detail about how you can locate really better paying clients, how to create a body of work that will attract those clients, and then how to market to them consistently. All right. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing right here and see if y'all have any questions. I covered a lot of stuff.
Thank you, Christina. That was excellent. You're right. You covered a ton of territory.
I did.
So you do have some time for Q&A then?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Great. Anybody jump in there?
There, there's some stuff in the chat. Let me just see if there's anything here. Don't be shy. And there's no such thing as a dumb question.
What I would say, Christina, is that's one of the better presentations we've seen. It's so helpful.
Oh, great.
And, really thorough. And I think it's going to be great for anyone who has answers to all those questions that they continually ask.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
From the chat room, Ryan asked, do you have a lead on a web designer?
You know, I actually have been using Photo Shelter. And so that's, you know, a template-based website. And I do like the layout of that. I think as photographers, we can get away with using some template-based websites. For my blog, which is WordPress-based, I am just constantly struggling with finding a decent designer. Especially now with, you know, the whole threat of there's going to be a new Google algorithm that's really going to penalize us if we have a slow loading website. So ChristinaPeters.com is, I don't know how Photo Shelter is going to handle this, honestly, because it's a very slow loading website. My blog, I switched it. I don't like the design, but it's really fast. And so I can't find a great designer that knows code enough to make it fast. I don't know what it is. And I wish I knew code, but I don't have a referral for you for a designer, I'm afraid. The answer to that is I'm still looking for one too, dude. You know, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a constant thing, you know? Let's see, Jenna says, will this presentation be available to view again at a later time? Oh, Alan recorded it. So I do believe you guys are going to keep it in your webinar vault, right, Alan?
It's going to be placed somewhere. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
We'll put that information out later. I don't actually do that part, but we do have somebody that will make it available.
Yes. Excellent.
Quick question while we're waiting on other stuff is, you mentioned doing photo assisting.
Yes.
Is there hesitancy on the part of photographers on taking on assistants because they're going to take away from their own work? Do you find that's more of a case, or do you find that you've learned more from assistants you've ever hired?
So there are two types of photo assistants in the world, right? There are those that are only professional assistants. And that's how I presented myself. I told them, yes, eventually I'm going to be shooting, but I'm not ready for that right now. So I want to be a really good assistant. And my business was Christina Peters Photo Assisting. That was my sole proprietor name. And so photographers who hired me, they were twofold. Some technically didn't light as good as I did, even at that. I mean, I was in my 20s at that time, but some of them used me for lighting, and others used me for production because I was very organized. And then others just used me as like a PA. I was just a runner. So it was days of film. So I would take film, run it to the lab, you know, go get Polaroid, stuff like that, pick up lunch, things like that. But I got to experience their shoot. So now that I am, you know, many years later now, I'm hiring assistants. I ask them a whole bunch of questions to try to determine, are they here for me or are they just here for themselves? And if an assistant comes at me and says, oh, I just want to see how you do everything and blah, 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 they are there for them, right? They're not going to help me very much. They're just there to try and see stuff. I've had a lot of people who say they want to shadow me. And so us pros, we get angry at that. Shadowing means you're not paid. You don't want to help. And you just want to watch everything. No, you better help me pick up that damn strobe pack and carry it over there. You know what I mean? No shadowing. And many states don't allow free interns either. So, which is good. So California, a lot of photographers took advantage of the free intern thing. And some were notorious about that. And so they didn't pay their assistants. They worked us to death. And, we got to experience being on their shoots. So that's no longer allowed. Probably the photo industry was what sort of took that down in California. But yeah, so you have to pay them. And the other thing is, side note, you do have to payroll them. They are an employee. So there's a lot of shooters doing this incorrectly where they're 1099ing their assistants. That is incorrect. Even if the photo assistant has a business license, the nature of their job is we are telling them what to do and they are using our equipment. Now, if you're hiring them as a second shooter, they have their own gear, they have their own set, and you're not telling them how to do something, that's a photographer's role. So when I hire my assistants as a second shooter, I do 1099 them. They get paid $700 or $800 a day. And that's their thing. And then I have to have them sign over their copyright to me for the job, right? Then the photo assistants are payrolled and they're covered by workman's comp. So I use a company. It's really, really popular in the film industry to do this, where you use an entertainment payroll company and you can do it. It's like short-term stuff. So it's project by project. So you're not paying for an enormously expensive workman's comp policy, which is like tens of thousands of dollars a year. I started that way. I learned the hard way. So I'm telling you guys the other. But I use a company called Smith and Stillwell. They're in Atlanta and they do payroll for the whole country, but they specialize in entertainment. A lot of movies are done this way. So they'll have a project where the movie is an entity, and then everyone's payrolled through something like Smith and Stillwell. And so that way, I'm the producer. Smith and Stillwell legally are the employees, and they carry the workman's comp. That's how that works. It's all on the up and up. No funny business here. It's how it's been done for decades. And
that's good to know, because we've had that discussion here in the chapter before on hiring assistants and what's the proper way to do that, and where to find the rules and regs. And so it sounds like the Smith and Stillwell is almost like a manpower for the entertainment industry.
100%. When you go to their, and just another thing, when you go to their website, don't get spooked. It again looks like it's from 1990.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
It ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly. So, but they've been around a long, long time, and super nice folks. And they cut checks fast. That's the other issue. Some payroll companies hold on to the cash for a little while. I got burned by a couple of payroll companies in LA. They went bankrupt and they took all of our money. So I had like $20,000 that they didn't pay out to my crew. I didn't know that. I gave them the money. They didn't cut the checks. So Smith and Smith, they've been around a long time. They would a lot of movie people use them. So that's the easy way to do this legit, where you don't have to have a workman's comp policy. It's really hard getting a workman's comp policy. They're very expensive, and they will come after you hard. So Smith and Stillwell. I'm sure there's others. This is just the one I've been using for decades. So,
well, that's good to know, because then you have just a line item instead of all the different bits and pieces of the employee.
Exactly. And so program. This is another thing that I do all the time when I'm working with a client who, like, ad agencies totally get that this whole conversation. They understand that our crew has to be payrolled, and in their terms and conditions, because they make you sign a purchase order, they won't sign your estimate or invoice, by the way. you have to sign their purchase order. And so in that purchase order, it always says that you carry the appropriate insurance, and they want proof of workman's comp. And so you can get a certificate from Smith and Stillwell where you are listed as a producer, and they totally the ad agencies understand how this goes. But the smaller companies, they don't know that they should do that. They don't know that they should verify that the photographer has insurance for their people, you know? And so I will use that as a sort of, let's just say like bragging rights, but not really. But I will just say to the client, just so you know, I do have workman's comp for our photo assistants, because we have to, by the way, but you'll be protected should something happen on set. And so you can usually say, oh, geez, I never thought of that. Like, yes. And by the way, I have insurance. And then, you know, if it's a really green client who's never hired him, like, listen, if whether you work with me or not, please make sure whatever photographer you hire has insurance, because there's a ton of people running around with no insurance, and they've been shooting for years, you know, and it's just a matter of time before they have a slip and I've had a slip and fall on my set. That's why I'm a freak. I shoot food. So just imagine what that kitchen studio floor looks like by the end of the day, you know. It ain't pretty, and it's kind of dangerous. So yeah. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Christina, all of these things that you're talking about, the knowledge of insurance and even the rules with assistants, those are all things that can attract clients.
Yes.
Because they then know what you're talking, they know you know what you're talking about, and they know how important these things are.
Right, right. I mean, that's the thing. I think, you know, once we're set up legitimately, it's important to, like when I'm even looking for a vendor, you know, with fixing something with the house, right? I'll look at their website, and if they're bragging about licensing and, you know, we've been licensed in this state for 15 years, like they're proud of that, right? So I interpret how I feel about that when I'm hiring a vendor, just for even my own, you know, my house and stuff. So it's like, yeah, I've been shooting a long time. And so I'll have that conversation. I'm fully licensed, and, you know, fully insured. And yes, I have a proper business license for doing what I'm doing, blah, 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 all that stuff. And so I think it'll put them at ease and definitely make them feel like I kind of know what I'm doing.
And it also makes them feel like you're worth the money.
Right, right. Well, and that's the other thing too, because when you payroll someone, you got to add 25% on top of their day rate. So some shooters force their crew to lower their day rate to payroll them. I don't think that's ethical. So they need their day rate that you've negotiated with them. So my assistants, if they don't understand a lot of the digital technical stuff, then they get $350 a day. So like a digital tech, they get $500 a day. Some of them even get $750 a day. And so it just depends on their knowledge and their experience. I call it the sliding scale of experience as far as pay is concerned. So if a shooter is brand new and they don't have a lot of assisting experience, then I'll only pay them $250 for the day. But I have to add 25% on top of that. And I line item that on my invoice. So it'll say photo assistant, like first photo assistant, that's the highest level one. And so they'll get, you know, maybe $500 a day. So it'll say $500 day rate plus payroll. And then in the estimate, it'll have the finished number, which is the plus the 25%. And then I even have in there state mandated payroll. So it's like, this isn't an option. No, we can't not payroll them. I've actually had cheap clients try to, do you have to payroll? It's so expensive. Do you have to payroll them? Like, yes, this is not an option. The state mandated. Come on. Well, our other photographer doesn't do that. Great. That's not legal. I'm not doing that. Sorry. I'll be nicer about it. I maybe won't have as much attitude when I'm telling them that. But yeah.
Here's another chat room question from T. Vasquez. It says, I'm in ASMP, New York. Mm-hmm. Do you have to pay taxes in New Jersey for work done there if I am from New York? And should I get a license in both states? It may be beyond the scope of this class, but if you can't answer the question, can you point them in a direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do like the flip. So each state is a little different. Some states, it's based on the amount of money you're going to be working in that state. So if your yearly billable is under a certain amount, they don't care. They don't want the tax. Others, it doesn't matter. Like for instance, I've shot in New York a ton. And so New York City offers a temporary seller's permit. It's $50. And then it's a reseller's permit for sales tax. And it's all on the up and up. And you're just kind of registering with the city temporarily for 30 days. That's how that kind of works. So look into the city of where you are shooting. A lot of the border cities have to deal with this. And so it's pretty common, you know, and I'm in a tiny little state right now, Delaware, like we're completely surrounded by a bunch of states, right? So as of right now, I am only licensed here in Delaware. My corporation it's called a foreign registration in Delaware. I haven't even started looking into, because when COVID makes it safer, I'm going to be shooting in Philadelphia in the bigger, with the bigger ad agencies there. And so I'm going to have to register in the state and all that stuff, but I haven't even shot there yet. So I'm not going to do that yet. But so I would just say, T, I'm going to call you T. I would just check with the area in New Jersey that you're going to be shooting. So there might be some temporary permit thing you could do, you know, or it's just based on gross income for the area. So every state's a little different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool.
Two more quick questions here, just from the presentation and the follow-up discussion. One would be, how do you as a photographer find helpers? What do you find is your best source? How do you find reliable help, that sort of thing? And then the second one would be, what would you recommend to a new shooter, how to find a mentor so you don't get into that assistant that's just in it for themselves, but looking for somebody for guidance? You know, that's what they're up to. How do they find a good mentor?
Yeah. So when I was assisting and I was looking to learn the field and as a mentor, I just told them that. And I said, you know, I want to be an excellent assistant for you. And I think being an excellent assistant is going to teach me a lot about being a good photographer. That's how I would phrase it. And so they loved that answer. And I was, of course, genuine with that. And then I said, you know, you do so many huge jobs. I just really respect your work technically. I would tell them why I was picking them to work with. And that, you know, I would love if it would be okay to get some guidance. If I am asked to do an estimate on a job, would it be okay if I run that by you? And so I was picking photographers that some of them did what I wanted to do, but I shot for so many different people, so many different disciplines, I should say, that I wasn't necessarily a threat for them. So they knew I wasn't going to go after their work. Now, with an older shooter that was very well established, generally, they never felt threatened by me. And so a lot of food shooters I assisted, that's how I discovered I really liked shooting food. I didn't know that when I was in school. I hadn't discovered shooting food yet. And so I thought I was going to do product photography. And so I was doing product photography and I was working with a lot of product designers. And just between us friends, I didn't like working with the product designers. They were like really anal. And, you know, it was like I was photographing mock-ups and stuff that had seam lines on it and everything. And it was just like, this looks like crap. And they're like, yeah, you got to make it look better. And again, days of film, I'm like, yeah, dude, I can't. So anyway, it was one of those, one of those things where I really learned, like, I don't like this at all. So when I started assisting the food shooters, I was like, I really like this. And then a couple of them really saw that I was enjoying it and they would give me my own set. They'd let me light it and they weren't threatened by that. So, you know, every shooter is a little different, but yeah. And as far as finding someone to approach, the ASMP, you guys have a great resource here because y'all have good people here, right? It's kind of like you guys are already vetted, you know? And so, sort of, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and you can just referrals, just, you know, hey, I'm looking for a good assistant. I ask my shooter friends all the time because I shoot a bunch of different cities. Well, before COVID, I used to shoot in Chicago, Dallas, New York, Atlanta, in LA, and Palm Springs. And so I didn't know, you know, when I was the first time shooting there, I didn't have crew there. I had to find them. So I asked rental houses that rented equipment. I asked them for a good photo assistant referral. And then other photographers who were sort of near the studio that I was going to be renting, I would just reach out to them. Someone who wasn't necessarily a major competitor, you know, so I didn't want them to feel threatened by me. You know, so that's how I found assistance. So, yeah.
ASMP is great for that. It's hard to get that concept of, yeah, I can call an ASMP member in Chicago that I don't know. And
right.
9 times out of 10, they're going to be very helpful and not
exactly. It's like you're in the family, you know? Yeah, definitely. Because you guys have such a big organization. You've got people in every city. So that would be a great way to do that.
Oh, just a quick heads up. Looks like Archie was able to rejoin us.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Archie.
Hello. I just finished up. How did everything go? How many? I got lots of dots on the bottom of the screen. There must be lots of people.
We did well. We talked about you a lot. It was really fun.
Good. Well, I'm just about to start to drive back in. Are you guys wrapping up, or is it still going on?
Yeah, we're doing our little Q&A right now.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself and just listen. Thank you so much.
Cool.
On your food photography, Christina, did it hurt to move from LA to Delaware, or are you still working? Are you working, you know, virtually or in your own location rather than going to these companies?
Yeah, it definitely hurt in that the original plan, right? We always talk about like BC before COVID and then AC after COVID. So before COVID, the original idea was I moved back east to help take care of my aging parents. I'm an only child. And so they're having some health issues. And so, and I drug my fiance, he's still here. I drug him back here with me. And the idea was I would be flying back regularly in California just to do the bigger jobs. So I was like, okay, I can do that 3 or 4 times a year. Perfect. So I can keep those clients. And then won't do the little ones anymore. And then I'll do some little stuff locally in Delaware. That was the idea. And then transition and do, work in Philadelphia with the big agencies there. And I started meeting with a bunch of people a year before my move because I'm approaching a new city. So I met with a whole bunch of people a year before I moved out here. And I moved during March last year and lockdown happened. And it was like, okay, we're not going to shoot in a studio. You know, we're deemed unessential at this point. I had 3 huge jobs lined up in California. All of them canceled, and they didn't happen. So they ended up not even, because it was so, you know, we kept pushing it. Well, are we going to open next month? And then it was kind of like, I'm terrified to fly. I don't want to go back to LA. Oh my God. So I turned, I just was like, listen, I think you should pick someone local. Who knows when we're going to end up shooting this, but I'm not comfortable flying back. And my crew was there. So it was like, I was the only one that was out of state at that point. So I definitely was like, okay, I'm not comfortable with that. And then it was just like, all right, well, we'll just wait and ride this whole COVID thing out. And here we are, So now I'm shooting locally. I just do some editorial projects just for fun. They are not 4-figure day rates. They kind of lead into them because when I meet with the restaurants and stuff, then they want to do more photography. So that's been fun, but nothing like the agency work. So I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable working in the studio again, so it's just going to take time to people to get the vaccine. That's a whole nother thing. Some people don't want the vaccine. And in the state of California, I got a lovely letter from, I don't know which governing entity, telling me that if anyone gets sick on my set, I am responsible, and it is a workman's comp. It's an injury. That's how the state of California is looking at COVID. I don't know if that's actually a nationwide thing. I don't know if that's a federal thing, but definitely with, because I'm a corporation, right? So I am an employer in the state of California. So I got that letter from, I think it was the California EDD, the Employment Development Department. I think they're the ones who sent that out. Because if you get hurt, have a workman's comp issue, that's the agency that helps you. So it was like, I get this letter saying if anyone gets sick on my set, like I'm responsible for their recovery. It's like, that would bankrupt me. If, can you imagine if COVID happens through on your set, and some people just have horrible reactions to it, and it hurts them for months. So how am I going to be handling and paying for their workman's comp, through Smith and Stillwell? So I just was like terrified of the whole thing. I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to ride this out. So I have not done a large agency job since the last large agency job I did was February, before we had lockdown, March of last year. That was my last agency job. I wasn't even aware of COVID at that time. Seriously.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what was going on. I kind of heard about it, but was like, oh. And then when we were on the plane flying over here from Los Angeles, I saw a lot of more people wearing face masks. I was like, we shipped our TV a week ago. Did we miss something? Seriously. Like, what the hell's going on? Everyone's wearing a face mask.
Right.
Like what, and then people are talking about COVID, and it's like, uh-oh. Like, oh my God, Scott, we really missed something, we were packing. So it was just crazy. Yeah.
Once it hit, it really locked down quickly.
Fast. Yep. We were here a week, and then it's locked down.
Do you have access to a studio where you are, or if you stay there long enough, would you look into that? So you might be able to do this virtual work?
So yeah, so I'm comfortable doing virtual work. I've been shooting virtually for a long time, but the plan was to be able to sort of do it renting studios in Philadelphia. So we're in a house right now where I do have sort of a smaller studio and the full-blown kitchen and everything. The dining room's turned into my prop area. So if you saw the house, it's set up as a photo studio, actually. and Scott loves me, and he's fine with that. But so the plan was to eventually have this house to shoot in. And so I'm just nervous with COVID. I really don't know, when I'm going to feel comfortable having a whole crew come to the house, and be working on stuff. Right. So yeah, I know people have been doing it and all of that, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Never gone through this before. Yeah.
I know this started out as how to start a photography business. Let me turn this on its head a little bit, because in our chapter in particular, we have people of every niche or whatever, in every stage of their career. So for someone who is not able to shoot now or is winding down, what opportunities are there for semi-retired photographers to either mentor other people or train other people in some way? Maybe something sort of like food photography club, but for other areas of specialty. Are those options for people that are looking to wind down their career, or to maybe change from shooting to education?
Yeah, absolutely. So many school programs now are doing virtual classes. If they weren't before, they were forced to now, because they have to figure out this new business, this new landscape that we have called COVID, right? So there's a lot of universities that absolutely you could reach out to do a workshop just like this for a lot of people. Camera stores now are totally jumping on the virtual workshop path. I'm getting so many emails from a lot of the camera stores in various parts of the country that I used to buy gear from when I was, shooting a lot in other cities. A lot of them are doing virtual workshops. So you could put together a program teaching your area of expertise. There's so many people who want to get into photography now. And a lot of them, because of COVID, they want to learn other disciplines of photography, not just the one that they've sort of been gravitating towards, right? So I had an awful lot of portrait shooters join my club because they wanted to learn about food photography. So, so there's a ton of opportunities for educating now online safely. If being in a in-person environment is uncomfortable for you. But the other thing too that is super fun and you can make a lot of money really easily is licensing your images in a fine art capacity, where you don't even have to print them anymore. There are a lot of fine art consultants that place artwork in all different types of facilities, buildings, spaces, where they will take your digital image and print it on a wall. So I've been doing commercial and fine art photography for decades, and they're two very different disciplines and very different types of clients. And so with the digital era, it just enabled us to do so many fun things with our artwork that really wasn't as easily sort of available back in days of film, So a lot of my abstract work, I have sold just the file. I'm not talking NFTs, there's the new thing that's going on right now, where like as if that is an original file. I'm selling the file. I'm selling a one-time display use. That's the license that I give the fine art consultant. And then they take that file and they have it printed or even printed on a substrate that's then permanently mounted to a building. And so the type of work that I do, my abstract work, a lot of fine art consultants who place artwork in hospitals and things like that, it's become very popular. The children love looking at it, and when they recognize it's food, they just can't believe that they're looking at this colorful thing and it's cauliflower. So I've been able to place artwork, some images I made years ago, and I sort of redo them, and I do fun composites in Photoshop and things like that, and have sold thousands of dollars worth of imagery as a fine art consulting based project. So that's another thing, that if you're winding down and you don't want to physically shoot anymore. I mean, my back's killing me already. I'm 52, so I'm not going to be able to keep hauling stuff around like this. But I got into it. I really want to do some licensing for like greeting cards, and calendars are huge. Puzzles are really huge for photographers. So there's a lot of products that put photography on an item to sell it. And so that can be, a great way to sort of wind down if you want to sort of still be creative and use your photography as a way to make some money.
Alan, as far as education goes, you're looking at one of the ways to do it. Mm-hmm. These seminars that you guys are all putting together. I think it was very educational and actually incredibly educational compared to, sitting at home and trying to figure it out yourself. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things when I'm launching my club, I always say, and I'll Google food photography videos, and there are billions of them. So I always say,
you want to keep looking at billions of videos and trying to determine what's going to answer your question, or, just work with me, So you can absolutely use that with anything that you want to teach. Just, you can save time, have a little workshop like this. And it's fun. It's not as much fun as being in person. I really do miss my in-person workshops, I can't wait for when we can do that again. So, but yeah, it's a
Put Pittsburgh on the list. We'll find you a spot.
love it. Love it. Now I'm so close.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah. I don't want to monopolize time. Anybody else? Go ahead, Gary.
I think this is a record number of attendees, or close to it. I'd have to ask Archie, but
nice.
Yeah, all for you, Christina.
Excellent. It was super fun.
So I have a question. If people want to contact you, do you do any consulting? If anybody wants to have any follow-up conversations with you, are you open to that?
Oh, sure thing. Yeah. You can go to ChristinaPeters.com and you can contact me there. I have a phone number on there. I actually do publish my phone number on there. And my email, you can email me too. And sure, absolutely. I do. I work with some photographers all over the country. It's super fun because then, if they want to go after, we work together to figure out what clients are in their area that they could try and shoot with. And I think getting a perspective from someone who's not there, who's not in it, it's like, oh my God, you can totally shoot for this company and this company, this type of company. Have you thought of that? And they're like, no. So it's super fun. Very, very fun. Yeah.
Right. It looks like we're coming up on 90 minutes. Anybody else got any questions?
I'd just like to thank Christina for the presentation and taking time with us tonight. Thanks.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for the warm welcome. It's been super fun chatting with you guys.
We're very warm in Pittsburgh.
Love it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing your experience. Like you said, just having this all organized and pulling on somebody that has over 20 years experience in the field, that has been there, done that, got the t-shirt, can help us avoid stepping in a pothole somewhere. Certainly helps.
Yeah. I've certainly stepped in some potholes. Some might call them, what's that phrase when the road washes out from underneath you? What is that? Sinkhole?
Yes.
It's more like a black hole, I think.
Black hole. I've climbed out of a few of those, I think.
If you Google Pittsburgh and sinkhole and bus, you're going to see some interesting photos.
Oh, that I would not want to be in. I wouldn't want to be in a bus in a sinkhole. That would not be a good time.